Good evening, everybody. Sunny Puzika's here. If you guys could please let me know if audio and all that stuff is good before we bring out our guest for this episode number 39 of Let Us Attend live stream from Gospel of Violence podcast. Rich Elby, how you doing? I saw that Mr. Williams was there like an hour ago, ready to go. 5 by 5 by 5. Very, very good. All right. Well, let me just get a couple things out of the way very, very quickly, and then we'll move on with the feature presentation for today's episode. So, quick shout outs to our sponsors Ammo Supply Warehouse for purveyors of fine freedom seats, ammosupplywarehouse.com. Good people, good selection, good prices, excellent service. Small business, they are our people. Butch trains regularly and support people like that because, again, this is not some big corporate entity. They are our people. Don, how you doing? Adam Hall. All right, all right, all right. Next on our sponsors list is Iron Pig Armament. Last Word Armament lets you know what these people do. Turtle Castell, a great product, proud owner of a couple of his creations. For obvious reasons, due to community standards and guidelines, we cannot show you during the live stream what they do, but you can put freedom seats in it and have fun, train, prepare. But not least, Ford Honey Badger body sprays. My better half, you can find them on our website. So, without any further ado, today it actually happened sooner than I thought because after our last episode, I did contact Mr. Paul Sharp, and thankfully, uh, he found a time for us, and that time is today. Just a little backstory. Paul Sharp, in my book, he's one of the OGs of the American combatives training space. Um, I ran across his name probably somewhere in the frame time of late 90s on reading some of his stuff on one of those back then. This is, guys, I want you to think about it. This is before MySpace, before Facebook, and things like that. That kind of gives you an idea how old we are. And so I was reading some of the stuff that Paul was putting back then in places like some of the forums back then. And it always struck me, although there were things that I'm like, no, I'm not sure about that. But, with some dudes, the ratio of signal to noise is very positive as opposed to majority of people out there. And that's what I found with Paul, that whatever he was putting out, even if I had questions or disagreements with that or whatnot, the ratio of signal to noise was always very, very positive, very good. And over years, I kind of kept track on him. I was watching people that he's collaborating with and working with, and then I've heard that Paul had written a book. Interestingly enough, I was finishing my own book at that point, and we'll as we have a discussion here today, we'll talk about things, the process of book writing and what goes into it, and the pain in the ass that it is, and the joyful pain in the ass, needless to say. But it was interesting. So I ordered the book. I got the book. I read it. I actually read it more than once. interesting thing happened. I'm going to have some questions to Paul because I read the intro, then I read the book, and then I went back to intro, and I'll ask Paul some of those questions once we bring him in. He's already in the background, guys. So if you have questions, definitely shoot the questions. You don't get to talk to people like Paul Sharp very often, and you know, people like him and many other people, and some of them they are like acquaintances throughout our careers in life, like Super Dave Harrington. They're no longer with us. We can no longer ask questions, and I cherish every conversation I've had with many people of that caliber. And this is not being fatalistic, saying that me or Paul, being old people or whatnot, we're going to check out, but you never know. But you just never know. And you'll hear some of the things in our conversations. So, without any further ado, let me bring in Mr. Paul Sharp. Paul, how you doing, buddy?
Very good, man. How are you?
Thanks for joining us, man. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you dedicating some time to this. It's as I said that I don't know if you heard it, but before I brought you on screen, I was telling listeners that your name crossed my radar probably good 26, 27 years ago.
Oh,
We
yeah.
we were joking about it earlier in the day when we were talking. I said, this is back when nobody knew the name Craig Douglas, right? He was just
Right.
this
Yeah.
mysterious guy, South Narc, floating
Yeah.
out there, right?
Right.
And and people like Paul Gomez and many other old
Yeah.
timers, back in the day on those forums, kind of exchanging the ideas, and sometimes it got heated. Certainly, it was passionate, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And so I tracked you since then. Not like some fanboy or whatnot, but as I said,
No,
because
no.
in my opinion, your noise to signal ratio is very positive. So you kind
Oh,
of keep track on people like that and see what they have to say. And then recently, actually, before I bought your book, I noticed like with few people, and me and you discussed that we had certain other things in common, going into the spiritual realm and faith and things like that. I'm like, damn,
yeah.
this is pretty interesting and quite unexpected. So, Paul, for those people who may be living in different universe and they don't know who you are and what you do and that kind of thing, could you give like a quick rundown as far as your background as it relates to the topic? And the topic is obviously, more of a wholesome framing of training, preparing to be the most that we can be
Yeah.
in case, God forbid, we have to do unpleasant, bad things, violence happens, conflict happens. And
Yeah.
generally speaking, it goes beyond that. It's just living more, living life worth living.
Yeah.
So if you can really quickly just kind of run down, your life, so to speak, if it's possible in a few
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'll do my best. I spent 22 years in law enforcement here in the United States. Worked in a city, I would say it's a medium sized city, about 200,000 people or so. We were fairly busy. That's kind of framed my desire to help others, or gave it a platform. The desire to help other people. The things that kind of framed my thinking, as far as being more capable,
Mhm.
would be the Hurricane Andrew in 1992 in Florida. I lived down there at that time. That really changed my perspective on what's necessary, or what does it take to be a capable person for my people. There's other similar incidents like that, blizzards where it was, we had a blizzard where it was like, I don't think it got above zero for 30 days, something crazy like that. The power was going out. Again, just reinforced that, hey, I have to be capable. I have to be able to take care of my people, take care of myself. Those kind of events, combined with what I was seeing on the job every day as a police officer starting in the 90s, began to um, change my focus and push me in a direction where I looked for ways to positively affect the environment around me, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure if if that makes any sense at all, but yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. I'm trying to like condense everything down
No,
really
no, no.
quick. Yeah.
Dude,
Um,
trust me, I get it. To describe, we are both in our later 50s, so,
yeah.
and we had some adventuresome time in our lives, and try to compress it in a couple of minutes. It's quite a
Yeah.
task. It's quite a task.
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely get it. Um, all right, how did you? At what age, I guess, well, or approximately or whatnot, like your interest and as young men or even children or teenagers, once we get it, interested in martial arts or fighting, obviously our motivations are very different, right?
Yeah.
But when did it start getting real for you? Meaning that it wasn't just to kick ass. You know what I mean? It became
Yeah.
something a little bit more. It became something where it is developing your character, it is developing your personality, it's changing your mind space. When did you, if you detected it in your evolution as a martial artist, for the lack of better term, when did you
Sure.
notice that?
Yeah, I would say probably 13 or 14 is when, and I kind of wrote about it in the book. I ran into this guy named Alex Lipinski, who was a prison guard, and his way of working out and training was, we're just going to go.
Yeah.
And kind of that Muhammad Ali saying where I started counting when it started hurting. And so he would push us, my brother, a couple other guys that were training with him. It was, I would call it American kickboxing. It was kind of like the Bill Wallace, Joe Louis style of competitive kickboxing. Not Muay Thai, but know what I mean? I guess for guys that don't know, I know you know, but for guys that don't know, think like karate or taekwondo style kicks with boxing hands. So if you go back and watch Bill Wallace or any of those guys, you'll see that. So his thing, because of the environment he was in as a prison guard, he very much had this attitude of nobody's coming to help you. It might take 10 minutes for everybody to get through the gates and locks and all that to get to you. So you got to be able to get it on and at least hang on long enough for somebody to get there to save you. And if they get there at all. So that attitude came through in his training. And that's when it clicked for me, because there were times where I would be exhausted, times where I just felt like I didn't want to do anymore. I remember throwing a punch and kind of popping my elbow, like we all have done probably. You throw one with intent and you miss, and it just doesn't feel too good. And I just wanted to take the day off and or stop my training. And he just said, listen, now's when you have to train harder. Now's when you have to dig deeper, because when you get yourself into a situation, it's not going to be on your best day. It's not going to be when you're feeling great. It's not going to be when everything is in perfect working order. It's going to be when you're sick, when you're tired, you're hungry, you are injured. And then that's when the predators are going to see, oh, you're the one with the limp. Let's get him. And you're going to have to be able to dig in. So I think that's when it really clicked for me that the martial arts were about more than just the punching and kicking. It was about building resilience, that indomitable will. The saying in judo of, if you get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. You always get up one more time than you got knocked down. And being a judoka from when I was 10 years old, that was just always kind of beat into my head of, get up. You don't have to throw them, but you got to get up. You don't have to win, but you have to get up. And you have to be a gentleman, a sportsman. You have to shake his hand, even if you want to punch him in the face. You gotta, But it built all those characteristics of always try,
Yeah.
always get up, always strive, always push yourself to go one more. So I think for me that was it. Well, when was it for you? Because I know you guys have in Sistema and that kind of stuff. You guys, it's a very similar thing
Yeah,
to.
see, like with Sistema, I didn't got exposed to it until I actually went to military. I didn't even
Yeah.
know it. I didn't even know it existed. It's interesting that you mentioned at the age of 10 being judoka because I told you, earlier when we talked about it. I'm wondering if my mom lied and she didn't have another child because we'll
Right.
discuss that later. Some similarities, right? But here's another
Right.
one that I just found out. Right, judoka at 10, similar experience in Soviet Union, and some
Nice.
of my very close friends, Virgis Yushkevicius was his name. His older brother was a heavyweight champion of Soviet Union in judo,
Oh, nice.
and
Nice.
that friend of mine was significantly bigger, stronger than me, much more imposing, even as a young kid. So I always got my ass kicked, and that mind space of being down but getting back up,
Yes.
especially in the Soviet, back then in the 70s and early 80s, in the street environment in former Soviet Union. It's, you know call it street cred or whatever you want to call it, but that's not something you could afford to lose.
Yeah.
And that
Right.
getting up was part of it was pride, but you didn't have an option not to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's a
So
good point. That's a
it's
good point. I first encountered that as a police officer in these two kids were fighting, and I, being a police officer, I stop and get out there. I'm brand new.
yeah.
I'm a rookie, barely on my own. And I go running out there. I'm like, knock it off. So everybody stop, blah, blah, blah. And one of the other kids is like, you got to let him finish. And I look at this kid, and this kid's like maybe 12, you know, and he goes, you got to let him finish, officer. You got to let him finish. And I said, what? What are you talking about? He goes, if you stop them now, then they're forever going to pick on him. He's new to the neighborhood. He's got to get his licks in, whether he wins or not. He's got to prove that he will stand, that he will get it on, and that
Isn't
gives him
that pretty?
street cred.
Is it pretty weird as a cop to get a lesson from a 12-year-old kid to go like, shit, kid,
Oh
kid is
man,
kid is
right?
not wrong, right?
Yeah, this kid was 100% right, and I did not know. I wasn't from that environment, and so
Yeah,
I had no idea. But like you said, right? You have to have that street cred, or you will perpetually be prey.
yeah.
It, even because it's better to be looked at as like I might be able to beat that guy, but I'm going to get hurt trying to beat that guy. It's better to have them have that thought process, and then they might hesitate, than to have them look at you and think every time I see this kid, I smack him around. All he does is run. And so, yeah, that was a valuable lesson. And like you said, you learned it early. I didn't learn it until I was 30.
Yeah, I learned it early basically because of environment I grew up in, but
Yeah.
the interesting thing that it came in very handy when I went to military because of the culture of what is in the West is referred as hazing, right?
Yeah.
And in
We need
in
to bring that
our
back.
I'm not arguing with that whatsoever. But it was like I remember, dude, I'm 17, I'm getting ready to, I'm like, I know I'm gonna go to military and all that, and kids that, older kids that already served their 2 or 3 years, whatever, they go like, no matter what, man, they break your jaw, they fuck you up, no matter what. Do not
Yeah.
do not just roll over.
Yeah.
Even if you can get
Yeah.
one lick in, cover yourself as long as you can, just get
Yeah.
one in. They
Right.
go like, after a while they'll stop. After a while they'll
Yeah.
stop when they will look at you and they will go like, yeah, we can kick his ass any day, but he's not stopping.
Right.
And you earn your respect. You
Yeah.
basically earn your stripes. So it's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely.
uh I don't like to throw the questions early, but I thought that was an interesting question that Adam Hall asked. I'm going to put it on the screen here. Paul, if you could add one person to Shivworks Collective, who would it be?
Oh wow. Yeah. The term Shivworks Collective was one that William came up with to
Yeah,
describe a group, a collective.
yeah,
So I think if I were to add one person, it would be William. I would bring him back, and
yeah,
but we can't. Pray
No,
for him, you know.
unfortunately,
But
unfortunately.
yeah, that would be my answer. Not to be a downer, but because I miss him. Like you said, you mentioned Super Dave, and it's one of those things where I know you've experienced it where you get on the phone with Super Dave and it's like it's a three
Three
hour
hours.
odyssey. Yeah, 3 hour odyssey, man, of just deep dive into all kinds of things. And it was similar with William. I would text with William almost daily, and so when you think about who would you add or subtract or anything like that, I always think about like, man, I would give. And I think you probably would understand this. A lot of guys would understand this. Like I would give a whole lot of things up to have days or even a couple hours with guys like Super Dave or William again. It's just
Absolutely.
such a valuable friendship, and resource is a kind of a weird word to use for it, but that's really what it is, right? It's like if you think of a resource like water, food, you can't live
Yeah.
without it. And that's kind of what that is. Those guys were like they were life, man. They were very positive, very knowledgeable, and yeah. So anyway, long
Yeah.
answer, but
Yeah.
sorry.
I had quite a few phone calls with Dr. April back in the
Yeah,
day. This is going back like 14 years, and we
yeah,
actually started talking about doing little collaboration, but then, yeah,
yeah. He was always one to collaborate with, and that I
yeah,
think I would like to think I got that from him a little bit, where always one open to collaborate with people outside of who you normally are
yeah.
collaborating with. You have to expand your knowledge base. You have to have that curiosity, that desire to learn, and always asking yourself, what if I'm wrong? What if I don't know? And this is too serious, this business of um, being more capable of being a protector, all of these things. It's too serious to have a closed mind and think I know everything, like I've got it, I've figured it out, it's settled
That's
science.
yeah,
you
that's
know
arrogance. That's arrogance rooted in ignorance, you know. And when I was talking to Craig Douglas a number of years ago when he was here, you know, like he said, which was for some people probably was a little bit shocking. He goes like, "I have an imposter syndrome." You know, I'm
sure.
thinking, what if I'm wrong? You know,
Yeah,
and those are the things. And to me, you know, that's like a healthy check and balances shit that people that are passionate about this business or about this thing that we do, I think it's a healthy thing to possess and have versus being cocksure, you know, just driven by your ignorance and
yeah,
becoming arrogant because of it. And you see a
yeah.
lot of people act that way, you know, and they just shit talk anything, you know, like the world ends where their horizon is understanding ending. They go like nothing
Yeah,
is beyond the horizon what I can comprehend.
that is a good
And
way
I
of putting it.
and I go
Yeah,
like, you know what? You may want to take a look at scriptures because I guarantee you there's a lot of beyond the horizon
yeah.
there that you cannot grasp.
There's a lot of the mysteries, right? There are things that I can't understand.
Right.
I think of during our catechism, uh, one of the guys was struggling with the Trinity and trying to understand it and trying to define it. And our priest, or one of our priests, said, "Hey, here's here's how you have to look at it. How do you define God? How do you explain something that you are not and you can't understand? And if you try to define it, you'll lose your mind. But if you deny it, you'll lose your soul. So this is where belief comes in, right? But it's there's things we don't understand, we can't define. But like you said, to just say that as far as I can see is as far as I need to see is just it blows. How can you be a martial artist? How can you be a man? How can you be a protector, a guardian, all of these things, but have a limited perception? Like put that limitation on yourself. Like you have to constantly be striving to learn, to better understand the world around you.
You know, and if nothing else, Paul, this is something I was thinking not only, you know, while going through your book and then there's something I posted a while ago about the actually the video that you mentioned that I forgot father's name, who was speaking about that maybe for 4 years you should keep your mouth shut after you become, let's say, Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
And you said
Right.
he was actually priest at your first parish, right?
Yeah, Father
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah, and and I was like, there's so many guys that come in, and they find this eureka moment that they found something freaking amazing, right? And
Yeah.
within 5 minutes, they want to go out there and be defender of the faith, waving the flag and being the pioneer of pushing this new beautiful thing that now they got it, right?
Yeah.
And I go like, dude, swim in that water for 4 or 5 years before you start lip working,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
because that's where a lot of noise is created, and that noise is drowning out a lot of signal. And
Yes.
that's the problem, especially for new people coming in. They get lost in the freaking noise, and they never find people like Craig, God rest their souls, Dave Harrington or William April or Paul
Yeah.
Gomez or so many others. They'll never
Yeah.
hear about him because of the amount of noise being projected there. Like, someone was joking about, again, coming back to orthodoxy. They go like, if there is a theological discussion online about orthodoxy, you're guaranteed to have 10,000 catechumens, uh,
Right.
three deacons and one priest. That's
Right.
that's pretty much the ratio,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you kind of go like,
That is.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I think
So,
there's value to that apprenticeship process. There's value in that. When I first started working at the site, which was eventually Blackwater North, um, I started working out there. I was invited by one of my former uh, police academy instructors, Herschel Davis, who's a pretty well known SEAL.
mhm.
He invited me to come out there, and a guy named John Bowman, who's a gun sight instructor, and they said, "Hey, you want to come out here and work the range with us? Be an assistant instructor is what they called it." And I said, "Heck yeah, man! Like, yeah, 90. It's a 90-minute drive one way, but I didn't care. I'd get off night shift and I would get in my car and drive straight out there. But you know what I did as assistant instructor? I painted steel, pasted targets. I ran and got batteries. I went and got bottles of water for the students. I made sure that the outhouses were clean and had paper. I did everything that I was told to do.
Altar boy.
And yeah, and I
Mhm.
was an apprentice, and I watched those guys instruct class after class. I watched them fix uh, problem students. I watched them fix gear, everything. I
Yeah,
all of the little things that you don't get a chance to learn if you just jump right in and assume this instructor role. And I got a chance to see the behind the scene things and hear the conversations where they would talk about, hey, at night, we're after class is over, like, hey, this guy's struggling with this. I think it's, we got to maybe have a conversation with him about this holster that he's married to that's not optimal. Maybe we should try to, let's give him something else to try. And I got to see all those conversations before I ever had to have them myself as an instructor. And I feel like that part of just being an apprentice, just let me just step and fetch. Tell me what to do, and I'll get it done. I'll make sure all you have to do is walk on the range and start barking commands and lining people up. And that process, if we skip it, we lose so much depth.
as ridiculous as it is the wax on, wax off Danielson.
Yeah, yeah, really. I mean, it really
Yeah,
is. It goes back to that process of,
yeah,
hey, I want to learn how to do these cool throws. Okay, cool. Well, first I need you to fall.
yeah.
I
ten
need you to
thousand
do
times.
some 10,000. I need you to do some forward rolls and some backward rolls, and I need you to fall to the side. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, when do I learn how to throw people? When you learn how to get thrown and not get
Yep.
hurt, then you can start throwing people. But yeah, so I think it's your to your point. That just take that 4 or 5 years, man, and just spend some time in the water. Spend some
Yep.
time just swimming, learning how to deal with everything that's going to come up, and then go. And then you'll have something to offer too. It won't just be it's not just me regurgitating what my instructors are saying or me doing my impression of them.
Yeah.
me taking all the different guys that I've trained with or worked for and putting it all together into my thing and creating what I want to present.
Yeah, no disagreement there, Paul, at all.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get here very, very shortly to your book because that's one of the main topics of our conversation here today.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't know, guys, this is the book in question, "Refuse to Die" by Mr. Paul Sharp, who's right there on the other side of the screen in front of you. I will express my opinion about the book. As I said, I read it. I actually did some rereading on some things that I took notes today to make sure that I'm not, you know, misinterpreting certain things that I saw and then made some notes. But is this your first book, Paul?
It is. So this is the first book, and I I've had people suggest I write a book before on different topics, and I just never. I would start, and then it would become overwhelming. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It becomes overwhelming. There's just this blank screen staring at me for an
Yeah.
hour, and I can't think of what to write. And um, yeah, so this was my first book, and I worked with a coach, a writing coach, to help me put it together. They did all the editing. They had a cohort, I guess you would call it, of beta readers that they send
Okay.
books out to. The people they know will actually read the book from all walks of life, and got feedback. And so yeah, it was a first book, and it was definitely I definitely got some bloody noses and got,
I hear you because you know I'm about to send off my first book into the printer, and it's you know when I started, not unlike yourself, you know, I've been asked by a number of my students and other people in the field, you should write about this, you should write about this,
yeah,
for over a decade now, you know,
yeah,
and I was always like, nah, I have nothing to say. There's some big fish out there that, you know, and
sure,
then gradually it actually took like a collaborative effort of some of my most dedicated students and then my wife to push me in that direction, you know. And I kind of had a lot of things that I written over the years that were either separate posts somewhere or a little
yeah,
Substack article or things like that.
yeah.
So I kind of started putting some of that stuff together. I'm like, oh man, this is going to come together pretty easy.
I had the same thing because, like you said, you mentioned the forums. So there was
Yeah.
Glock Talk,
Hmm.
Jaeger's forum,
Yeah.
Get Off the X,
Warrior
Suarez
Talk. Yeah.
Warrior
Suarez is
Talk.
Warrior Talk. Yeah.
There was the Self Defense Forum, which later
Yes.
became TPI.
Hmm.
So it was these, and then there was the straight up martial arts like Mouseles and Inasantos, and so I've
Yes.
been writing forever, and then I've been writing on a blog for a long time, and so like you, everybody's like, oh, to come together, just grab all these posts that you've written that people like and they share, and just grab all these posts and put it together, and it'll be there, just all done,
Right.
book. And no, it did not.
Yeah, when I
It
started
did.
putting mine together, I'm like, oh, dude, it's gonna be 3, 4 months. I'm done. A year and a half later, I'm like, shit, I'm still on the chapter 7.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly. It's like,
so that was
man,
this. Now, let me ask you a question: Is this is gonna
sure.
be your last book?
No, no. So I've had a couple. So I have a. So we're putting together a workbook to go with it that will clean up some areas that I've got some feedback on from other people who weren't beta readers, people that know me and have read the book and are like, "Hey, man, what about this? You should clean this up. You should do this." There's always going to be feedback, right? And I
Yeah, of course.
try to be open and try to be cool. And there's always that tendency to be like, "But this is my baby. You're telling me I have an ugly baby, you know?" And so
No,
so
it's really not like that. The way I look at it, Paul, it's like people making suggestions because they went to different baby outfit stores and they saw stuff that would look good on my baby.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, and
and
also they see you differently than you see yourself,
Of
and
course.
so they want to hear that side or see that side come out, and so it's always positive, it's always good. But yeah, so there's going to be a workbook and then a second book. The second book will be more kind of stories,
Okay.
because I didn't go into stories in this one. That was one of the things with the writing coach. She's like, we're going to develop a concept and then block it out. And then she had some suggestions with the formatting, which at the time I was kind of against and pushed back on a little bit. But then I realized, like, what do you do when you have a coach? You trust them. And so I just trusted her. And a lot of people have remarked that they like the way there's space around the paragraphs so that they can write and they fill in things like as they read, they think of something, they write it out on the in the space between the paragraphs. So, like I said at the time, I didn't. I thought nobody has books like that. That's not how books look. It's like a wall of text, not
Right.
paragraph space paragraph space. But I trusted her, and she was right. People like that part of it. So there, yeah, definitely a learning experience. And then going into the workbook's much easier because that's just building off what's already there.
Yeah.
And then the actual third book, um, I'm hoping that'll be a less painful experience to write that because now I've got a little like I've taken my licks. I got smacked around a little bit with the first one, so hopefully, no.
All right. So let's go a little bit into your book, and this is, if you take it that I'm calling your baby ugly, so be it, man.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no.
But I read a little bit different. You know, I read slowly. I
Sure.
read slowly because it's just like with music. I don't listen to music in the background. If it's worth listening, it's dedicated time for it.
Yeah,
And I was going to ask you because you quoted the line from Rush, and I love Rush, but
yeah.
I'm a Tool guy, you know what I mean? And you
Oh
know what they
man.
say about the fans of Tool and Rush? They're like the most insufferable human beings, especially when two of them are in the same room. It's like just
Yeah,
leave, you know.
yeah.
So
It's like
I thought
CrossFit and the
that,
beat.
yeah, that could be an interesting sideline there. But
Yeah, for sure.
the the preface for your book was written by Mr. Matt Thornton. How did
Yes.
you come across Matt?
So I met Matt, interestingly enough, on an online forum in the '90s. So I was starting to train. We were doing more of the, oh man, how do I explain it? Um, there was a police officer. I was living in Miami. I was doing the JKD kind of stuff and still training judo because Hialeah, you have all like Little
Yeah.
Havana, you have all the Cuban judo guys. Um, so I was doing judo, boxing, training a little bit of everything, trying traditional martial arts, Wei Shiru, and different arts like that. And a guy named Carlos Hernandez, who's now, I believe he's still the mayor of Hialeah, but at the time he was a police officer. We would do this silly stuff where we would put on like paint goggles and we had
Hmm.
these Daisy BB guns that were they were only a single shot. You had to like
Yeah.
like a slingshot. Yeah. And we would put those in our pants or we would start with it out and then you'd have to like grab it and we would just fight and to try to figure out what works and what doesn't. His interest was for law enforcement because he's a police officer and my interest was just martial arts. It was just another way to train. So I really loved it. And I was finding a hard time finding a place where everybody trained everything, stand up, clinch, ground. It all was just integrated. We didn't break it up into different things. And Bert Richardson taught a seminar at the JKD school I was training at. He taught a seminar and he was talking about this guy in Portland who is doing basically MMA before there was an MMA, like a name for it, but he was blending all the ranges and they train live. They wear like fencing helmets or they wear all protective gear and they just get after it. And I thought, man, that's what I'm looking for. That's kind of what we're doing. But with Carlos, it was more oriented towards police stuff. So not really fighting. And so that's, I talked to Burton. He's like, oh yeah, man. He's like, this guy is, they're just about what works in a fight, and they don't care about anything else, where it comes from, what the name is. They don't care. If it works, they keep it, and if it doesn't work, they get rid of it. So he gave me the email, because back then, there's no cell phone or anything. So he gave me the email. I sent Matt an email, and he reached back out to me, and we started talking, and then that was it. So 1999, 1998 or 99, I trained with Matt, and he asked me to become part of the Straight Blast Gym, and that was it, man.
That's interesting because obviously Matt has been a fixture in the combatives world in here in the West for quite some time, and so when I saw that, and there's a couple of quotes there that I kind of pulled out, and I wanted to ask if if you care at all to expand a little bit. And I know it's something that many people have said in many different ways, but the final weapon is the brain, all else is supplemental. And that's the quote from John Steinbeck, however you
Yes.
pronounce that name, right?
Yeah.
But, in the modern combatives martial art world, these are being seen as a stale cliches, and people almost going like, whatever, dude, whatever. My shit is in my fist, my shit is in my elbows. I
Yeah.
bring this to that. Or then you go into the gun world, especially now with the performance competition shooters. It's the
Yeah.
whole separate discussion that gets derailed very, very quickly.
Yes.
But like to me, if I were a newbie or intermediate or coming into the field, when I hear people, with the pedigree and the background of people like Matt Torden and yourself and many others, throughout throughout the years, to include Dan Inosanto, to include the Tuar brothers, to include so many other truly phenomenal martial artists out there that in one way, shape, or another, they all say the same thing. I would probably pause and kind of go like, what is this
Right.
mindset?
What
what
is
what is
that?
what is this shit that they talk
Yeah.
about? How does it affect our functionality? How does it affect our development and evolution in this field?
Yeah. And yeah, and that's what you alluded to, right? That truism, or that thread that goes through everything. It's always mindset, regardless of who it is or what culture it is or there's always something about mindset, which would lead me to believe, like you said, maybe I should look into that. If it's found in every practice, there's a piece where they say you have to have mental toughness. Um, I don't know if you've read the book by oh man, Dr. James Lauer. It's an old book. It's from the night, not old, but oldish. It's from the 90s, 1990s, and but it's called Mental Toughness Training for Sport. And
No,
he talks
I haven't
about,
read it.
oh man, it's good. He talks about the just mental toughness, right? And how there's always going to be this discussion of, can you teach heart, or is heart something you're born with? And in the book, he talks about, if I take you for a run, and he probably couldn't write it in a book now, but back then you could get away with writing it. If I took you out for a run and I drove in the car next to you, and you sat in that car and you held an AK on this guy, and are like, don't stop running. If you stop running, I will shoot you. You know, he's going to run. He will find a way to gut out a 20-mile run. And he talks about, so what is it then? What is it? You could summon up the ability to gut something out, even if you're not trained for it, not prepared for it, if you absolutely had to. And so when we talk about mindset and all, or fighting or any of this stuff, we have to start with mindset. I really think, if we look back at like Colonel Cooper, well, he called it the combat triad,
Yep,
and mindset was always at the top. Jaeger talked
yep.
about mindset endlessly, and mindset was everything. Steinbeck writes about it. I really think, I wish guys would just understand the role and put more time into actually thinking about it, not dismissing it. I think the danger is that people are a little dismissive of it because they look at it as this antiquated thing that doesn't matter. And man, you know, Outward Bound. I can't think of the guy's name. The guy who developed Outward Bound. You know what I'm talking about? That group where they take kids out and
Yeah.
take them
Hmm.
out into the desert and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, he, yeah, he noticed that there were certain sailors who would swim, and there are certain sailors that would go under the water. I think it was World War I, and so he decided, much like George Herbert, the Frenchman, pre World War One guy, the Movement Naturel guy,
Hmm.
they both kind of came to the same conclusion separately, which was the best way to develop that never say die attitude is movement, is exercise, is doing hard things. There's pictures of George Herbert walking around like 5 stories up on this little tiny ledge with French firefighters in like the late 1800s.
Yeah.
But he's doing it to inoculate them, to get them over their fear, but also to show them that it's all here, man.
Yeah.
Like it's all here. It starts here, it ends here. And so,
There's
like
a
you said,
saying that I always was kind of leery of using it because it's very heavy statement, but they say, mind, what a beautiful servant, what a terrible master.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's something, like coming back to when you're saying about the movement naturel guy from France, because I'm always very leery of saying French names because I butcher them to such degree that it just
me
sounds like
too.
I'm trying to make them sound like they're gay. And I have, couple of my dear students are French guys, with very heavy
Yeah,
accents. But
right.
the thing is that, I say to my students that a lot of people say that, mind determines a lot of things and then your body falls into it. But I go like, understand
Hmm.
this, that your mind participates in your body's experiences, you
Yeah,
know, and a lot of your mind training does happen through what your body experiences, and that is determined to what you allow your body to experience. And we get to the
right.
chapter where you talk about, the safety net and how us trying to chase and being coached by the culture to chase the comfort, the ease of life and all that, we lost our purpose. We lost our
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
you
we
know
lose
and
our
and, and,
purpose.
and now we deprive our bodies from doing those things that would have mind participate in it, that would change the mind space of how we are.
Yeah,
So it's not like this separate, fragmented, existing in isolation, some kind of a glitch in the matrix, but it's really systemic. It's really systemic.
yeah. And I really think, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too. I really think all training is total body training. All training is mind, body, spirit. You can't separate them. I don't know how
No.
to separate them. That the last 3 hard reps of a deadlift workout where you don't think you can do it, but you do it, and you grind it out and you're shaking and you barely hanging onto the bar and then you set the bar down. Was that your body? Was that your mind? Was that your spirit? What did it? What really lifted that weight? And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on that because I really have over the last probably 15 10 or 15 years have really got to a point where I just think you're training all of it every time you train. So also you have to be intentional with your training.
Yeah.
If you're dry firing, whatever it is, because every rep is training the whole being.
You know, I spoke quite a bit lately here in quite a few classes with some of my lifetime students about, what a terrible disease we have now is the fragmentation being introduced into the world of training and learning, and it's because of very narrow specializations, be it
Mm.
competition shooting or whatever the case might be. And that fragmentation, I think this is where you started seeing people rejecting or not acknowledging the importance of integration of, like you said, into your work, It is, we are created with all three for a freaking reason. That guy
Yeah.
was pretty damn smart,
Right.
as far as I can tell, you
Yeah.
know, and
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and and what happens, is because of that fragmentation. I think, like next quote in the preface, and I think it's also, I don't know if it's something that you interjected there or if it was Matt Thornton. The greatest tragedy of modern life is not failure; it is underuse.
Yeah.
And I read
Yeah.
that and I go like, and I wanted to ask you because again, if it's Matt who wrote it, obviously it would be a question for him, but nevertheless, I will ask you, what's your interpretation of that? Because to me, failure is not really, it's only failure if you are not using it as a lesson, as a
Hmm.
diagnostic. Then it's a failure. Then it's a lost rep. Then it's a wasted time. Then it's a swamp.
Yeah.
And a lot
Absolutely.
of people, what gets involved with that is the pride and vanity. I failed and I'm better than that. And I go like,
Yeah.
no, you're not better than that. You can become to fail where you fail less or in less significant ways. But the
Right.
only way it's going to happen if you're going to slow the fuck down and examine your failures and the why it happened.
Right.
Most
Yes.
likely, it's not just going to be in your muscle or in your elbow. It's something here, and most likely, it's something here too.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And with that, when I was talking about that, it really it's just we are underutilizing because our life is so comfortable. I don't have to look for anything any longer. I don't have to walk over and find a book and look for something. I can just ask chat or Google or Grok or whatever it is. And so that to me is kind of what I'm talking about in that portion where it's like we're underutilizing this incredible gift that we are given. We are fearfully and wonderfully made, and it's incredible. There's I was talking about this with my wife the other day. Um, there's hormones, there are aspects of the thyroid that we can't explain right now. We don't know. That's how incredibly awesome this body is. And it's not just the physical, but it's the mental and the spiritual aspect of it too. And I personally am fearful for our younger generations in that they are going to underutilize what they've been given. And we know what happens when you don't use something, it goes
and
away.
yeah, yeah, squandering the gifts like that, man, it's really a scary proposition. It's a
Yeah.
scary proposition for our future. Cool. Then I was laughing because that's in my like three chapters, and I put it somewhere there in the quotes. Life without danger is also life without depth, and
Yeah.
then you said, soul insulated from struggle slowly forgets what it is capable of.
Yeah.
you know
Absolutely.
and these are the things, and I liked it. And I'll tell you what, this is something that, as someone who just finished writing my own first book, which is also not going to be the last, I
Yeah.
was I
Heck yeah.
found it interesting because your introduction, preface and introduction, actually, it's almost like in reverse. It actually summarized the whole book. And
Yeah.
then when I read further through the chapters, I go like, you actually expanded on that. So then I went back to introduction after I finished reading the book, and I go like, this is almost like by design, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like that introduction where people can take, inspirational quotes, put it as a poster, and hang
Yeah.
it in their freaking gym.
Yeah.
But you're only gonna get it if you swim in those waters, or at the very least you read what follows the introduction in the book,
Yeah.
because that's where you expand on those things and you kind of unfold it. So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool format for me. I was like, that's
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
formatting.
We wrote the preface and introduction after I finished the book.
I figured
So
that.
I finished the book and then I was like, oh, I still got to write this.
Yeah,
But it was easy. It was easier because I had already kind of gone through the process of putting everything together and trying to get it in a way that made sense,
Yeah.
some sort of progression. So, but yeah, I think about that a lot. You know, it's like when we really figure out who we are, when we really figure out what we're capable of, it's when we're struggling. It's when we're whether it's climbing a rope and or having a hard conversation that we've put off for far too long, and we just got to have it. We got to do it, and that's when we really realize what we're capable of. Is when we get uncomfortable, and we move into this area where we're not quite sure if we can do it or not, and then we show ourselves, I can do this. I am capable of doing it. My ancestors did it. People around me can do it. I can do it. Why
Many
am I
of
limiting myself?
many of the wise men throughout history, both from faith perspective, desert fathers, and then you look at the Stoic philosophers and people of that nature, right? This is not new. This is not a
No,
new concept, that resilience and character are not built in comfort. They
no.
develop and they involve in struggle. As you know, in Orthodoxy we say, joyful suffering, right?
Yeah,
And for a
yeah,
lot of people, they go like, what? you
right.
know and I go
Yeah,
like, yeah, buddy, 10-minute plank hold, that's joyful suffering. You will start
yeah.
speaking fucking tongues, and
Right.
so
Yeah, especially the way you do them, where you like try to pull the ground, like you're trying to like crush the ground between your feet into your hands, and like I started doing them like that. I started seeing dead relatives. I was like, holy cow! I thought I was doing planks from now. But yeah, to your point, one of my favorite quotes from St. John Chrysostom is about what's the difference. Somebody asked him, "What's the difference between a married man and a monk?" Meaning a priest and a monk.
yeah.
And he said one has a wife. Like you should both should be living an ascetic lifestyle.
Yep.
Both should be embracing the suffering. Embracing everything that's going to make me Christ-like, everything that's going to get me closer to Him, and taking me away from the things that are going to take me further from Him. And so, yeah, that's yeah.
It's interesting you mentioning St. John's Chrysostom, because for anyone who's married, whether you're male or female, that is one of the figures in the history of the faith that is definitely probably one of some of the most profound writings about the sacrament of marriage.
Yeah,
And
his homily
that.
is it homily 20 on Ephesians is so good.
Yeah, yeah, it's
So
pretty
good, man.
amazing.
Like that's marriage advice right there, man. You don't need a counselor. You just need to read that and do it. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, when people go like, I gotta go see, we gotta get some counseling done, and I go like, have you looked at some of those counselors? I mean, like at their lives, at
Yeah,
it's kind of like asking, I don't know, asking sex advice from the virgin, or chastity advice from a porn star.
yeah,
Nah,
yeah. It's
nah,
like no, dude.
nah.
Yeah, no. Take a
Yeah.
pass on that.
So let's move on to page 19 from introduction. Pain becomes something to eliminate rather than something to interpret. Dig it. Dig that
Yeah,
sentence, man. I dig that sentence
nice.
because that sentence alone is worth unpacking for 30 freaking minutes, and that's
Yeah,
something that in my classes I stress. I go like, you know, pain is kind of like being slapped in the fight. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We rush to respond, we rush to react, we rush to lash out, and I'm
yeah,
like, stay,
yeah,
stay for a minute or two
yeah,
or five. And at first maybe it's gonna be that chest thumping, overcome. I need to overcome and I need to win and all
mhm,
that stuff. Eventually, through that, you will develop certain amount of calmness, because it no longer, you realize after 5 minutes, okay, it hasn't killed me yet. It's okay.
yeah.
I can live through this, right?
Right.
That brings certain level of calmness that now you can actually start asking yourself a question: why does it hurt?
Yeah,
If you're doing a
yeah,
push-up, or if you're doing some other exercise, or if you find yourself in the bad position when someone is folding you inside of your gi,
yeah,
and stay. Don't rush to tap, don't rush to go like, I would just punch him, I would just throw the back elbow and do this. I'm like, no, stay, and what convention would say, lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay in it for a minute, you know? And I talk to my competition guys and people all the time that back to what we were talking about with using martial arts as a tool for something greater than just fighting. I tell them when you're in that moment, you're uncomfortable, and not where you're getting injured, but you're starting to get caught. There's something, it's starting to go bad. Don't rush to tap. Bet on yourself. Say, listen, I'm going to try for 10 more seconds. I'm going to try for 5 more seconds. Okay, it's getting bad, but I'm going to try for 3 more seconds. Because in that moment where you bring your hand up to tap and then you decide, no, I'm going to bet on myself I'm going to give myself 10 more seconds to solve this problem, to get out of this, to stay calm, to breathe and work my way through this. That's where the change happens. That's where you start to understand what this is all about. Similar to your post about push-ups the other day about the calm, and the negative. That's where you learn, man. That's where the pain and the discomfort becomes your friend, because you realize this is teaching me something that the comfort, the all the other thing, getting out of this and staying away from this, I would never learn. I would never learn it. But in this
I
moment,
Do you think that people maybe, and it may sound funny from someone who comes from Russia, and English is not his first language, but I kind of started noticing something, that people don't pay attention to fucking meaning of the words. And I noticed that, obviously I'm not the first one to say it. I went to a number of lectures by Dr. Peterson, and he harps about it all the time. Words have meaning.
yeah,
But when people say calm, I notice that the way they interpret and where they take the conversation, that they kind of equate it to apathy. And I go, dude, that
yeah,
calm is actually the opposite of apathy.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
opposite of apathy. Actually, that's calm is a lot of strength. Calm is a skill. Calm often itself is a skill, because that gives you a luxury to reflect.
yeah,
That slows down the time. It's no longer, chronos time. It's the kairos. It's the
yeah,
sanctified time. When you're being
yeah,
choked, that's a sanctified time for you to reflect and go like,
yeah,
cool, right? When Habib was
right,
making fun of Conor McGregor because he tapped out so quickly with the jaw crack
yeah,
and all that,
yeah,
Habib was kind of going like, why you tap quick,
right,
And I go like,
yeah.
and then you look at the way those Dagestanis train, and you go like, yeah,
It makes
they,
sense.
they swim in that pain for a while before they sink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
stay in it, man. You have to stay in it. And like you said too, with like the whether it's the cold exposure or you're out for a run, I'll if people go with me on a training run, I'll tell them like, hey, as soon as I see, you know when somebody's starting to flag a little bit, they're starting to fail, and I'll just tell them, look, stay in it. Don't slow your pace. Definitely don't stop, because
yeah,
once you stop, it's really hard to get going again. But just stay in it. All I'm going to ask you to do is stay in it for as long as you can, and then try to stay 30 seconds more.
yeah.
Just we'll just keep biting it off. 10-second increments, man. 10 seconds, just 10
You know,
seconds more.
funny story. I saw people break down, right? So, number of years ago, I got invited by BBC to do a show in Wales. We were literally like 30 kilometers outside of Hereford, the 22nd SAS. And they had these extreme athletes from all over UK that were going through, it's a BBC TV show, but they
Yeah,
were going through training by different special forces groups and all that, and the Israelis, the Navy SEALs, the this, the that. And there were 6 episodes, and I was episode number 5, and of course the number 6 was SAS.
yeah,
So one of the exercises that I had guys do, I think I had like 8 people left. The rest of them were eliminated, and I had to eliminate
mhm,
down to 4, and then the SAS guys would select the winner.
yeah,
So Cool. So we have a 25-kilogram rucksack. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
these guys run ultra marathons. They swim the English Channel and then they bike to Paris. So for them to run couple
Yeah.
kilometers with a rucksack is nothing. So I'm
Right.
standing there and I go like, cool. We cut off the straps and I go like, you're gonna carry a rucksack in front. So they do that. They run that 2.5 kilometers, and I'm standing on the bridge. I see them coming around towards the finish, and you can see the guy running in front. He's like, "Yeah, baby, I got it." And I'm standing there smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, good job, mate. Give me one more."
Yeah.
It broke him.
Broke.
It
Yeah.
broke him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he thought that
Because
was
there's
it.
this victory within my reach. I'm about to grab it and touch it, and
Yeah.
then someone goes like, "Do it all over again."
Yeah.
And that
Exactly.
anticipation of success, I think this is what happens because people don't dwell into developing calmness under duress, under stress, while suffering, while in pain.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like a fast food approach towards victorious and glorious ending. The
Yeah.
happy shot, the money
Yeah.
shot, right?
Yeah.
And you go like, dude, this is not the way. This is
Right.
not the way.
Right.
Pretty cool, man. Man, my mom lied to me. I do have a brother, and that's very
Exactly.
interesting. Very
I just gotta learn the
interesting.
language.
I know, right? Um, Another thing that you said, and it was actually even in the same paragraph, you said, in choosing comfort as our compass, we quietly redefined the purpose of life from formation to preservation. I thought that was another one that's worth 30 minutes, but we're not going to dedicate it because I have another 3 pages to go through with you. So just accept the reality. You're going to be here for a while, Paul. Sorry about that. Apologize to your wife.
Right.
We also joke that your wife is a former Mormon, and so is mine.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
There's some uncomfortable number of coincidences going on here that I'm
Right.
like, shit, man, what is going on? Um, and then I put it also somewhere in the comments section where I thought this is cool, and if you can expand a little bit because you do it in the book, and I don't want for us to expose everything in the book. Guys, those of you who are watching, listening, buy the fucking book. It's worth every penny and then some, and it's not just for you to read it, but it's to keep it so you can come back to it as a reference. I'm telling you, it's not because Paul, me and Paul have some kind of joint projects. We don't. I mean, we don't have
Yeah.
business interactions or whatnot. To me, it's
Right.
simple as that. No one has to sponsor me for me to say it's good shit.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank
I
you.
read Paul's book and I'm like, this is heat, man. This is good. I'd like to see more. That's why I asked, is this going to be your last book? Because yeah,
Yeah.
you should expand quite a bit of it. And I'm kind of gently trying to push you on a couple of the points here, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
For
I'll
sure.
I'll try to be nice.
No, it's all good, man. Let
uh,
it fly.
yeah. So then you said every avoided hardship is a trait, right? And so interesting. I go to my chapter in my book. Here's my quote: "Whatever we don't change, we choose."
Oh, that's good. That's good. Because
And
then
I'm
that's
like,
back to Rush, man.
yeah,
That's back to
yeah,
the lyric, right?
yeah.
Right. You
Free
still made a
will,
choice.
right?
Yeah,
Free
you
will,
still
right?
made
You
a
still made a
choice.
choice. And that choice is
Like,
really is the choice between either evolving or remaining. And
yes.
and, and that's part of what I found that vibe in your book is that keep like you said that French guy keep freaking moving
Yeah.
whether it's literal or not keep
Yeah.
freaking moving.
Keep moving, man. Don't let yourself sit.
Yep. All right, so here's a little bit. I want to pick your brain a little bit. So some people think that making a choice only applies to change or action, but they think that like we were quoting Rush from Free Will, right? uh, but inaction or apathy and remaining, it's not a choice. It's just everything stays. It's a choice. It
Yeah.
always is a choice. Why you think people have they neglect to admit to themselves that not doing shit is a choice. Why you think there is a fear to admit to themselves that this, because like the last quote in my book is that, and I'm going to read it for you. uh, I want to sum it up, the path of the student, with this: a true measure of a man is not what he wants to show to the world, but what he tries the hardest to hide from it.
Ah, that's good.
you
I
know
like that, dude.
and to me
That is a
this
good
is,
one.
but this is what we hide from ourselves, you know what I mean? Because we go like, well,
Yeah,
if I don't make a choice, I'm not going to confront this. You were talking about, like, I, I I have a class I call conflict management, and it's interesting how many people say, "Oh yeah, your class on de-escalation." I'm like, it's not de-escalation; it's management.
right.
Words have meaning. There
Words
is
have,
t-
yeah,
there is
it's
time to
important.
there is time to de-escalate, but there is time to put pressure, because there is a longer term change that is going to be dependent on it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it could be
Hmm.
in different environments, in different realms of what you're dealing with, not necessarily of, of violent nature per se.
Yep.
So why do you think, at least from your observation, you've been teaching people and lecturing and talking to people for decades now. Why do you think so people, they kind of give themselves that, the most elaborate form of self-sabotage, that excuse, that
Yeah.
if I don't do nothing, I didn't make any choices, so I'm basically innocent. I wash my hands, I'm like Pontius
Yeah.
Pilate. I didn't do
Yeah.
shit.
Right. And that's exactly what it is. It takes all the they think it takes all the responsibility off of them. But what they don't understand is they're the only one that have to live with the consequences. They have to live with it, you know? So, yeah, you might point the finger at somebody else and say, well, I didn't make the choice. I didn't choose this. I didn't, but you have to live with it. So, if you want, whether you want to admit it or not, we want to admit it or not, the choice has been made. We
Yeah.
made the choice. And so to me, that's what it always came out. What I came down to was speaking to a student, you just don't want to take responsibility. So that's okay, but I want to hear you admit it
Yeah.
because that's a hard pill to swallow. When you make another human being stand there and look you in the eye and go, okay, yeah, I just don't want to take responsibility. And then you can see it kind of click a little bit where they realize, oh, it is, yeah, I have to take responsibility. Nobody else
Well,
is going to do it for me.
there was this phrase that I quoted on more than one occasion. I said, action and consequence is a package deal, not to be sold separately. But the thing
Yeah,
about it is that it has to probably expand that action or inaction with the
yeah,
consequence is a package deal.
it is. Yeah,
Because what you
one
say
way
or
or the
don't
other.
say, do or don't do, it still has consequences, sometimes more
There's
heavy.
consequences. Yeah, right. There's still consequences. And I remember when I was a kid, one of my aunts would say that all the time. You know, you would say, "Oh, I can't believe this happened." You know, this or that or this or that, and she would just look at you and just go, "Consequences.
Yeah.
You somewhere in there, you made a choice, or you didn't make a choice, and here we are. You're living with the consequences of your action or inaction."
Have you noticed in your experience, Paul, and over the years and decades now teaching, that sometimes brightest people, the people that are smart, very sharp minds, they actually very prone to that, because their minds work so well, they can formulate an excuse for an action to such degree that it actually sounds like logic. It sounds
Yeah,
like, this
yeah,
is make it makes sense, man. I'm just gonna sit back.
yeah. When I coached kids, I would call those guys the attorneys. I
Yeah.
would tell them, listen, you should be a lawyer. When you grow up, you should be an attorney because you can rationalize anything. You can explain anything away and you can do anything but make your client take the consequences of their
Yeah.
actions. So you'll be a great attorney one day. But yeah, I agree. It's like the smartest kids were the ones who were the fastest, the quickest on their feet to make those excuses and rationalize away why we should or shouldn't do this or why they don't want to participate, it would always be the smart ones. They could just come up really quick. They could spin up an excuse and put it out there. And I'm like, nah, dude.
All these years later, I'm wondering because when I was going through selection to be, not just a regular cannon fodder in the Soviet Union, just a little bit higher priced cannon fodder, right? Uh, there was actually a test which was not a Q but more of a general intelligence test, but also a Q test was included. And it was interesting based on certain metrics, not just numbers. They would select people who would be the door kickers and who would be doing other things. And their
Huh.
explanation was that sometimes people with very high IQ and or general intelligence, they will be the ones that will hesitate
Ah,
because they will bring that rational excuse making into a
yeah.
point where some of us knuckle dragging monkeys will go like, this is time to kick,
Yeah.
you know
That makes
this is
sense.
this is time to kick.
Yeah.
So I
That
thought
makes
it
sense.
was interesting that freaking commie KGB guys, they actually were pretty they were pretty smart about how they were selecting people.
Yeah. They put a little work into it. They figured it out.
Yeah, the sad part of it, I was selected as a door kicker, so that means I'm a dumb motherfucker. Whatever.
Right?
It is what it is, man. It is
Yeah,
what
it
it is.
is. It's all good.
um, couple more quotes. Oh, let me get to that because we kind of joked about it a little bit over time. That mythical Todd guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I remember reading that. I think it was actually Paul Gomez. He goes like, "Hey, have you read that thing about Todd?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he pointed me out. I think it was a tip on TPI, and
Yeah.
he pointed me out to that, and I'm like, "Oh, I met Todd. I mean, his name was not Todd, but I
Right.
Todd kicked
Oh
my
yeah.
ass more than once in my life. I know Todd. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I want to be
Heck yeah.
Todd."
Right.
But it's interesting to a lot of people now, even the guys who've been around for a little while, maybe 10, 15 years, they never heard of it. When I describe it to them, I go like, this is from guys like this is like from 20 plus years ago. Guys in the circles were posting that kind of stuff. They go like, man, where do I find it? And then I see that you have that in your book, and I go like, yeah, right there, right from the source.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. What's the story? I know you told the story in the book, but the story is that one of your students, right, kind of, or friend or colleague or something like that,
Friend.
kind of studied.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sebastian, a friend of mine, former Navy guy, and now he's a venture capitalist, runs an investment firm. And it was a thought exercise. What would the worst possible opponent we could ever face look like?
yeah.
How would that person train, etc.? And then how should I then train, knowing that guy's out there? And a lot of people rejected that. A lot of people pushed back on it because,
It's fear
again,
mongering, right?
yeah, yeah, or they just, like the common thing we would hear was like little old ladies defend themselves with snubbies or whatever, or a gun that's not even loaded, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but I'm pushing myself to a higher standard. I'm asking more of myself than that. And so we created this kind of mythical creature, super villain.
Monster. Yeah.
Yeah, this monster, this super villain, because you have to have a super villain in order to have a superhero. And as silly as it sounds, we were training. We wanted to be heroic. We wanted to be the people that those around us would look to, knowing we could handle business. And so that's where that came from. So yeah, it was a fun experiment, and it actually led us into some really interesting places as far as training goes.
But you know what's interesting about it too, Paul? Because now, all these years later, right? Now you hear and you see that same good Dr. Peterson being quoted, right? Where he goes like, you have to be a monster. right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
basically the idea that was in our circles 25 years back, right?
Yeah.
But now,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the very respected philosopher guy said it, and I love Dr. Peterson in many ways. I don't
Oh yeah.
necessarily agree with everything he has to say,
Right.
so I'm not a fanboy, but I there's a lot to learn from Dr. Peterson. But I find it
For
funny
sure.
that now, you cannot go through 15 different posts on social media and not find some kind of a form of people repackaging what Jeremy Peterson said. And I go like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that Todd guy was alive before Dr. Peterson even
Yeah.
started
Exactly.
putting
Yeah.
the
It's
videos
like,
out on YouTube.
yeah, it's like, man, we worked through that already. We already talked about that. Like, yeah, get as dangerous as possible and then get it under control.
Yep.
Like if Todd is the supervillain, then we want to be the superhero version of the guy
Perfect.
who's not, not malevolent, not out of control, not, you know,
Righteous.
yeah,
Righteous.
the righteous guy, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, I mentioned before, and we talked about it. We do everything to avoid conflict, right? And again, I think, and I don't remember what movie it was, but one of the actors said, "There's only one question that matters." He goes, "What's in it for me?"
Yeah.
you know
Right.
and I kind of got that vibe reading that portion that where you were talking about of people avoiding conflict at whatever cost, and let's just put it under the carpet and not have a
Hmm.
hard conversations, not bring up the contentious topics and all that. And you kind of go
Yeah.
like, you know is that really cowardice? Is that cowardice that becomes like a new normal to address the issues because we think somehow magically issues will go away?
Yeah. I do. I think it's cowardice. And what happens and what we see often, right, is um, it will become so rather than address the issue, they'll start to snipe. So people will start to make little comments and they'll make little snide remarks and
Yeah,
that passive aggressive stuff and it's so it's going to come out, but it's going to come out now. It's coming out in a cowardly way.
yeah.
Like, why don't you just say what you have to say, and then we can discuss it. But instead, I'm just going to snipe at you, and I'm going to, or maybe even worse, I'll gossip. I'll say things to other people about you that I should just say to you so we can talk it out and get it figured out and then move on. But instead, I'll do the actions of a coward and go behind your back and undermine you and say things to other people. And when really it is, I'm choosing the comfort of cowardice to avoid this conflict. And that, yeah, man, I see it as cowardice. I don't know how you see it, but I'd be interested in your thoughts. But to me, it comes down to they're just afraid to do something hard, and that's fear based behavior.
I think it is fair based, Paul, but I think I'm gonna go a little bit more politically incorrect than you and be a little bit more harsh on that. I think that we are created, all of us, even the worst of us. We are created by the same guy, by the same
Yeah,
source, by our
right.
Creator. Simply by virtue of that, all of us intrinsically have ability, not just ability, but we cannot suppress it, to recognize the truth.
Yeah,
But and here is the like Tool sings, "Oh Father, why you gave him free will? Now they all confused."
yeah. Right.
See, I can quote things too. Um, a lot of people become manipulative with the truth, and the early examples, when you think about it, like when Jesus was tempted by the devil, all three temptations were from scriptures.
Yeah,
All three times the devil tempted him, he used passages from a scripture.
yeah.
So he was not using a lie.
Right.
And I was talking to Father Barry, and I was listening to some of the stuff coming out from some Orthodox seminaries, and something that struck me where they go like, devil deals in facts, but not the truth.
Yeah, that's a good
That
one.
that hit me like a freaking brick, man. And
Yeah,
I go like, I can take parts of the scripture and manipulate it to turn another cheek, or this or that, and make it sound legit. And in essence, I can say I'm not lying, but I'm not
yeah,
telling the truth. I'm using the truth to advance my own agenda, and that agenda is usually agenda of fucking cowardice.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
satanic, dude. That is
yeah.
satanic. I'm sorry to say, but when you're
Yeah,
using
no, it's true.
when you're using such things to manipulate it, and and manipulate those facts and put them in such an order like Lego pieces to
Yeah,
justify your own freaking wickedness or weakness, or whatever the fuck other
yeah,
things that you try to hide from the world. I go like, man.
yeah,
But it has become like a new normal in society, and unfortunately, I also can say that it has become somewhat of a norm in our field.
yeah. Definitely.
You
Yeah,
know,
definitely. But yeah, no, I agree, man. It is definitely cowardice, and that makes a lot of sense too. What you said, where the origin of it, right? It comes from an evil place,
yeah,
because that you're dealing in lies. You're dealing in twisted half truths, and yeah, that comes from the father of lies, right?
yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a good point.
I figured that of all the guys that coming back to my post where you said that when I posted about the negative part of the push-up, that's where the gold is. It was interesting. I got quite a few messages, and people got involved into deep dissection of biomechanics and structure and this and that. You were the only guy who actually referred to calmness that had nothing to do with physicality of it, and I'm like, believe it or not, that was one of the things that kind of like put a period in the sentence. I go like, all right, I'm gonna invite Paul, and I hope he agrees to come on the podcast, because I'm like, I want to pick his
Yeah,
brain. I
heck
like
yeah,
it. I like it how it
yeah,
works.
awesome, man.
So, all right. I want to challenge you on something, Paul. And it's not
Yeah.
that I disagree, but I want to see if I misunderstood, or if this is something that you're gonna expand in your workbook, or it is something that we may have a different vantage point how we look at it. So later in the book, you write about creating systems and habits, right? So I wanted to dissect this, and I guess the first question that I would have for you: how would you define habit?
I would say a habit is something that you no longer have to think about. It's something that you do, a daily practice. It's something that you do every day or at whatever interval it is, but it is now part of you. So let's use dry practice as a daily habit.
Okay.
It's to the point where you don't have to think about it. It just is what you do. It's as much as you get out of bed and brush your teeth and use the bathroom and start your day. It's just like that. It is just something that is part of who you are and what you do every single day.
So it's basically like in medical field, people say that heart, our organ, our heart has automaticity because it produces its own electricity. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It doesn't need an effort to do its work. It just does
Yeah,
it. There's automaticity, right?
right.
Uh, so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper in that, because for a lot of people, what habit is something that I got used to doing, and this is where I have become pretty damn anal about the meaning of words, because when people talk about habits, there is a habitual liar, there is a
Right.
habitually addicted to this or that, or habitually lazy, or habitually workaholic, or habitually
Yeah.
whatever, right? So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts to where people potentially they don't misinterpret it, where they go like, well, uh, if the habit is becomes where if the habit is so let's say I'm uncomfortable doing this kind of a workout, or moving this amount of weight, or whatever other stuff I do, right? But through the willpower and determination and all that, I do it, I do it, I do it, and it becomes a habit. Now I'm not uncomfortable there and I become comfortable there. Isn't there a danger that habit brings you to like new frontier of the new comfort zone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it's important to stress to people that the number one habit that we have to develop is to constantly seek challenge. That has to be the first, that has to be kind of like in Star Trek, right? Like the
Yeah.
prime directive, you know, that has to be our main thing, is that I am constantly looking to challenge myself. That's my number one habit that I, or discipline that I develop, is that every day I have to challenge myself. Even if it's, like we're talking about planks, abdominal stress is a great way to develop mindset. If I just, there's some connection between doing planks or sit ups or whatever it is, leg raises, that just develops something in here because you just don't want to do it. People
Yeah.
don't like doing that stuff.
Tell
So
me about it.
yeah, but if I get to where I can do a 5 minute plank, which that's probably pretty good for a lot of people. But then I say, hey, there's this crazy Russian guy, Sonny. He's got this way of doing the plank where you are on your elbows and you're on your toes, and then you flex your abdominal muscles really hard, and then you pull your elbows down like you're trying to touch your elbows to your toes. You're not going to be able to because the ground's in the way, but you try to break the ground. Now hold it for 5 minutes. Well, now I've just raised the challenge. And so it's like, yeah, we're doing 5 minutes every day. You've developed this habit. But can you do, if your overarching habit is to constantly look for ways to challenge yourself, then you will start doing your planks that way, because that's going to be a never ending battle. You are never going to be able to just sit there for 5 minutes and not tremble ever again in your life, you know? And so, yeah, to your point, I think, yeah, there is a danger if somebody just thinks, well, if my habit is to go to the gym, I walk into the gym, I get on the treadmill, walk for 5 minutes, talk to somebody, look at my phone, and then leave. Absolutely, man. You're 100% on. But if my challenge is I have this logbook, and using principles of periodization, I waved up, and at the top of my wave, I was able to add 50, or let's say an advanced lifter, right? I'm able to add two more reps and maybe a 10% increase in weight. Okay, cool. I'm at the end of my cycle. Time to go back down, start over with a new exercise. And that every time I go to the gym, yes, my habit is to go to the gym, but every time I'm going to the gym, I'm challenging myself to get more reps, to get more weight, because I have a goal that I have to reach at the end of this mesocycle before I can let go and start over again. So yeah, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. So my challenge didn't work out. It was actually, yeah,
Yeah.
we do have very similar perspective. I was just thinking that, just wanted to check if you not talking of a habit as a new place where you comfortable.
Oh no, never. I think we lost you, bro. So I think we lost Sonny for a second.
No,
So
I think I'm back.
are you back? All right, I was going
I'm
to answer
back.
Nick. So Nick said St. John of the it's St. John Chrysostom. So I
Yes,
think its last name is Chrystos. Yeah, Chrysostom. So yeah, just
yes,
look that up and you'll find all kinds of good stuff on him, Nick.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, my phone was ringing. My daughter, my elder daughter, was calling me. Sophia just graduated from the college and she just moved to Nashville,
Oh,
Tennessee. So yeah, I'm that old too, Paul.
well, congratulations, man. Congratulations to your daughter
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Interesting story. I don't know if you saw it, but about 3 weeks ago, my elder daughter Sophia, she witnessed within 6 feet away from her a guy being shot
Oh
uh, in South Florida.
man,
They went out. They went out for a birthday celebration with like 20 people group and whatnot, and the people sitting next table to them got shot from the outside through the window. It was
oh
like a
wow,
hit, like a hit. So it was
oh
interesting
somebody
because
targeted.
yeah, so she messaged me and she goes like, all these years I listened to you talk about it and how serious it is, and I saw how you teach people and things that you guys do and shooting around people and close to people and all this crazy stuff, and I was like,
Yeah,
that should only happens in movies or in my dad's
right.
range. And she goes like 6 feet away from me, guy got hit. She's like, I heard
Ooh,
bullets hitting the flesh. She's
oh
like,
man,
it was like very raw,
yeah,
very visceral
became very real.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, became
So
very
now
real.
she's like, so me and my boyfriend are planning to come down, visit you, and get some training. I'm like, well, you know, even the tragedy sometimes serves a purpose.
Sometimes, man. Yeah, thank God nothing
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Thank God she was
yeah,
safe. So,
yeah. So that was
man,
kind of interesting. Uh, anyway, little detour. Let me accelerate here because I don't want to keep you till midnight, Paul. Because then I'm gonna have to answer some angry messages from your spouse, and I'm not good at that. Um, couple quick questions. So I'm very leery now on using the word repetition, and I'll tell you why I'm leery of using the word repetition because repetition, most people again the interpretation, how they understand the word and what it means, and it becomes basically like brainless reciting of what they saw or memorized.
yeah.
So I started replacing and I said, I don't want you to do 10 repetitions, I want you to do 10 experiments.
Yeah. Or like some I like the word iteration too.
Okay.
Sometimes like this is an iteration. So every time we do it, there should be changes. Pay
Okay.
attention to the information we're getting. But like you said, experiment like experiences or iterations. It's every time I do this exercise, I want data.
It's a loop.
And it should
What's in it for me, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I should be learning something each
Yeah.
time. There should be something. And I've had this conversation with my friend Adam Singer. He's really deep into the ecological dynamics approach and the philosophy behind all that. And we've been having a lot of conversations. I've known him for as long as I've known Matt. And so we've been having a lot of these conversations, which mirror what you just said, which is no two repetitions are the same. So I do a rep, even though it's this, I think it's the same. Like, let's say you give us the instructions. I'm working with another student. You say, hey, jab with the left hand. I just want you to slip to the inside and touch the chest. Just touch to the chest, move,
Yeah.
slip, touch. As much as I think it's the same repetition every time, it's not,
It's not.
because they start to make little adjustments, whether they're conscious or not, because we have that competitive game like side of ourselves where they want to try to like actually tag me and I want to try to not get tagged. So we start making adjustments and changes. So to your point, which is really important, it's not just a rep. It's not, because everyone's going to be different. So everyone's going to be an experience. Everyone's going to be an adaptation to the one that just happened. And so, yeah, I like what you're saying. That's really important. I haven't thought about a way to uh, like a word to use in place of repetition, but I like what you're saying with experiences. Or I was playing around with iteration, but a lot of people don't know what that means because they don't come from the
Yeah.
tactical. So I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like experience because that really does encompass what's happening each time. It's a different experience, and we know we grow from experience.
Yeah. And that's
So
what I push, because that's part also, that got doubled down to the orthodoxy and study of faith is that the mindfulness in so-called repetitions, and that's where repetition
yeah,
becomes not a repetition anymore. It's your
yeah,
mindfulness in it. And coming
Yeah.
back to some people that we no longer can refer to because they have departed, like Super Dave, right? Super Dave
Yeah.
Harrington. Like you said, every phone conversation except the last conversation, which was literally a couple of weeks before his passing, was a very short conversation because
Yeah.
he could not remember things. He didn't know what
Yeah.
was
He
going
was.
on, but something was happening.
Yeah.
But before then, like 2 3 hours every time, with Dave, like
Oh yeah.
my ears are sweating, my wife is yelling, the dinner is cold, and I'm like, I'm on the phone with Super Dave, forget about it, right?
Yeah.
We had a lot of back and forth about importance of slowing down, because Dave was asking me, he goes like, I know you guys in Systema stress importance, and he goes like, you specifically said that slowing down a training is a gift that introduces more learning into your training. And I go like, well, I mean, how you look at it, Dave? And Dave goes like, I start referring to my people as students once they in real time can verbalize their fuck up as it is happening.
Yeah.
He goes,
Yeah.
that tells me you have become a student. You're not just a participant. You're not just, I'm
Yeah.
just here because it's cool class with the cool guy from Special Forces. Whoopsie doo,
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so we had some interesting in-depth conversations. Obviously, Dave mainly about the gun work and all that, but about that whole metric of speed and training full speed full intensity. And I go like, that's another like big separation. I go like, you got to understand the difference between learning, training, and drilling. They are not the same. They
Yeah.
interconnected, and you cannot
Yeah.
just fragment it, but they are
Right.
different activities. They are
Yeah.
different
And they
activities.
yeah, and they feed off each other. Like one
Absolutely.
informs the other.
Yep.
It's a loop, and you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
It's kind of like knowledge, understanding, and ability, right? You can
Yeah.
be absolute professor because you have all the knowledge, but you don't understand shit about how it works, or you
Right.
don't have any knowledge or understanding, but you just been kicking ass on the street. You're a savage,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you kind of go like, but that's that coming back to that idea of wholesomeness,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
all three are needed.
Yes.
Unfortunately or fortunately, but all three are needed. Few
Yes.
quick questions for you, and this is sometimes that I do with some of my guests, and you happen to be one of those guys. Not like on those comedy shows, so I don't want like a single word answer, but as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Ready? The
Yep.
most gay things in training industry.
Oh.
Damn, I put you on the spot.
Oh man, there's so many. Oh
Pick
man,
top three.
I would. Yeah, I would say probably man, in over reliance on information from one source.
Okay.
So if it happens in a USPSA thing, then that's it. If it happened in a gunfight, then that's it. It's like again, the loop.
Yeah.
You know, when people get over reliant on just one source of information, yeah, bad things
Like
happen.
like Craig Douglas referred to that of that mythical Yoda that lives somewhere in that mystical place that has
Yeah,
all the answers and all the magic.
right.
And then we
Yeah,
talked about it, and a lot of like methods or martial arts systems or shooting systems or whatnot, they kind of start existing to self-perpetuate.
yeah,
And people get sucked into it and they go like, I'm a faithful believer. You know what I mean? This is
yeah,
where the truth is. And I
right.
go like, there is a Trump derangement syndrome, but there's also Trump dick sucking syndrome.
Two.
Neither
Yeah,
neither one of them is good.
neither one's good. Yeah, and so yeah, so that would be my number three. My number two would be most gayest thing in the training industry is not training with everybody you can train with. Like I can only train with this guy or that guy,
Yeah,
and like these camps, these tribes, and then to that point too of well, if my favorite trainer or my group isn't friendly with that group, I can't be friendly with those. That's so dumb. Like I don't get it at all.
it's like it's like a 6th degree level mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
Sixth
It's just
grade.
so.
Yeah.
Sixth grade. Yeah, it's so weird because you know you were in judo. In judo and wrestling, I started wrestling when I was little. Boxing, you train with as many people as you can, as often as you can, from
Yeah.
all different places, because one day you might run into somebody and need an answer, and one of those guys might have had the answer,
Yeah.
and you were so busy trying to suck your guru's dick that you didn't see that you neglected. You know what I mean? You didn't want
Yeah,
to
or you got
offend.
on the same page with the guru or gurus, or few gurus talking shit about certain person. Or this guy
Yeah,
doesn't know what he's doing because,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
And like, and they never stopped to say, "Well, have you trained with them? You know, have you ever like stood on a range with them or in on the mat with them, or have you done any like how do you where are you drawing this knowledge from to make this decision that that guy sucks and I don't want to train with him?
you
Like to
know
me, that just
that's
blows my mind.
that's actually one of my chapters, one of my commandments in one of my chapters is normalize not having an opinion on something you're not maybe informed to
Yeah,
to a certain
right.
degree.
Yeah, it's
Like,
okay.
like someone tells me, like, what do you think about Matt Thornton's training? I never trained with Matt.
Right.
I've seen people that have trained with him and all that, but as far as me having a qualified opinion on training directly with Matt Thornton, I don't have it. And I'm just going
Yeah.
to say, I don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
Why? Because I
Right.
haven't trained with the guy.
Yeah.
It's as
It is
simple as
okay to
that.
not be an expert in everything. It
Yeah.
is okay to be able to just say, I don't know, dude.
Yeah. All right. So there's a good one. The phrase be about it. Now, I want to put some context before you go there. And I'm going to put context that you can definitely relate to because of our shared faith. Like many people, many know about God, and they become like internet theologians, right?
Yeah.
There is a difference of knowing God from knowing about God, right?
Yeah.
So when I hear people say be about it, but you don't see the works of it, you don't see that they even have framed what it is. To
Yeah.
me, it's kind of like a cheap Instagram influencer, Insta famous kind of shit,
Yeah.
and I knew some people like that became very very popular with tens of thousands of followers and all that, but then knowing about their personal lives, how they were about it, and what that
Right.
it was, you kind of it's cringy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
I see a lot of that in our industry where people become some kind of a, they almost like, I don't know. I'm gonna be like your spiritual guide. I'm gonna take you into this light. I'm gonna show you how to
Right.
live right, how to be better lover, better father, better. You know what I mean? Not to
Yeah.
knock on people like that do help people, but there's so many out there, just like the preachers in mega churches. You know what I mean? You kind of go
Oh yeah.
like, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So, all right. So I kind of answered it for you. So it was kind of like a trick.
It
All
was a
right, there you
trick
go.
question.
There's a question. Your quick take on credentialism, and then the dudes that go like, "Hey man, if you haven't jumped out from 30,000 feet with the fucking nods on your face, don't even talk to me." What's your take on those dudes?
Oh man, I don't even spend any time listening to them. As soon as somebody starts with that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, bro, you win, because I
Yeah,
know what
like,
this is.
"Hey
This
man,
is the ego.
I was Delta, I was DevGru."
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I mean, that's admirable, but we also have to understand context. You know, like what's the context? What are we trying to learn? What skill am I trying to develop? You know, if I go to a guy and he's like, well, I was a Delta guy, it's like, okay, cool, but I'm trying to learn how to do a clean and jerk. You know, like
yeah,
what's the context? Like, what are we talking about? So yeah, man, yeah, and that's kind of leads back to the be about it type thing where like, okay, that's cool, but that was then. What about now?
yeah,
What are we doing now? You know, what have you done recently and what's relevant to what
And
we're the
that's a
conversation
big
was.
question, the relevance, right? You have
Yeah,
these guys coming from super duper ninja teams and all that, and I go like, I'm sorry, my wife Megan will not gonna be in stack with me when I need to clear the rooms. It's gonna be me,
no,
dude.
yeah, gonna be
And I'm
me by
sorry to
myself.
say, but individual work clearing the corners and working the fucking trenches is very, very different than overlapping
Yeah,
sectors of fire and and all the
yeah,
other ninja stuff.
right.
It's very different. So
Very different.
the relevance, I kind of go like, and I don't have the carte blanche to just whoever I see shoot him in the face. I
Yeah,
don't. As a
I
civilian,
don't.
I don't.
That doesn't happen,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I would tell people all the time when I would teach like self defense seminars and things of that nature. I tell them like, listen, when your incident happens, I won't be there. You will be on your own. We have to acknowledge that first. That's the context. You will be on your own, or even worse, you might be with your elderly mother or father, or you might be with your children and you're having to wrangle them while deal with the threat and figure out how to get them all to safety and deal with this issue. So to me, that's a more important context than learning from some dude who's never had to think about that or do that.
Yeah.
And he wants to tell me all these cool stories, but none of them are relevant to my world.
Yeah.
Why would I pay $750 for a weekend of this when I could just buy him dinner and he could tell me all the cool stories? So
It's
it's like,
actually actually Shrek already told all the stories on the YouTube videos. So why,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So that leads to the next thing, which we all are exposed to certain level to one level or the other, the tactical cosplay. People
Yeah,
buying latest greatest gear, the crate this, the four tubes this, and at the same time I go like, bitch, you cannot run two flights of the stairs without losing your shit.
right,
You cannot break chicken shit on someone's chest with a punch. You said
right.
about kicking ass, you cannot raise your leg to the level of someone's ass.
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
talking about staccato?
Right.
Dude,
No. Yeah.
that stuff, you
And
know what I
and
mean?
yeah. And I you see that in everything, right? You see that in
Yeah.
cars, you see it
Yeah.
in everything.
Mo-
Motorcycles, it's
yeah.
like, oh, why don't you learn how to ride the bike, dude? Or why don't you learn how to drive the car? Like just learn how to drive and then start bolting stuff on it. And it's the same in the tactical world.
Yeah.
Can you clear your house? Can you move from your bedroom to your child's bedroom, secure them, and decide what to do from there? Do you know how to do all that before you start doing all this other stuff? That
Teamwork,
has
like,
nothing.
hey,
Yeah, it's like, man, what about the practical stuff? Let's master the practical. Let's master. Let's. You almost want to break it down for them, like, hey, let's create a list of priorities. What's most important, and then let's spend some time on that. You know, and so yeah,
so little disclosure.
yeah.
This is a one pyramid of priorities
Oh,
that I
nice.
that I put in my book as an example, and then I tell people, and then so at the top, prevail. In order to prevail, you
Yeah,
have to be able to kick ass and to take ass kicking and stay functional. Kicking
right,
ass. Now we're breaking down kicking ass into hand-to-hand skills, bladed weapon skills, impact weapons, firearms. Each of
right.
them breaks down separately. New pyramid.
Yeah,
Break down that, and I'm like, eventually, if you diligent and mindful enough, somewhere at the bottom, you're gonna find something that you should be doing now, and it's probably gonna look similar to a push-up or a deadlift,
right.
a
Yeah,
sprint or a throw of a sandbag,
right.
a 100-meter swim only using one hand with your legs tied together with a tourniquet on your free hand,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
6 hours of dry work of just accessing the gun from the holster without target ever being present.
Yeah, right.
And
Exactly.
people go like, but that's boring shit. I'm like, yeah, you're not gonna get follows on Instagram doing that shit, brother.
No,
Not happening.
no. You're not going to get followers, but you will save your life one day.
Yeah.
or the
Indeed.
life of your family.
My next guest is going to be actually this incredible chef, and that's exactly what I'm going to
Nice.
be talking to him is about his approach to food and how it intersects with what we do.
Oh, that's cool.
Because like watching him cut tuna when he does the sashimi, because he does like like curated
Yeah.
dinners and stuff like that. It's like poetry, man. You're watching that and you go like,
Nice. Oh, that's
it's
cool.
it's like watching Horian Gracie doing his shit at his prime.
Yeah.
You kind of go like,
Yeah.
yeah, baby, there it is, there it is.
Yeah. There's something about seeing somebody just, I know it's not the right way to say it, but perform excellence.
Yes,
There's something
yes,
about seeing somebody just execute at a high level, no matter
yes.
what the skill is. You
Doesn't
know,
matter.
it doesn't matter, right? It's just that pursuit of excellence. There's something
Yes.
about that that is just inspiring. There's trying to think of his name. Anyway, one of the Orthodox priests was talking about the icons and the architecture and all of that and how it's necessary as inspiration. When we
Yeah.
see a beautiful cathedral, we see icons, we see these things that are beautiful, it inspires us to be better, to strive to act, operate on a higher level than what we're currently on. Versus when you see like just a square brick building,
Or modern
gray.
modern art, right? Someone puts the
Yeah,
handprint in the middle of the paper. Baba, $6 million painting. What?
yeah, there's no excellence there. There's no pursuit. There's nothing that inspires me to want to try to be better. And so, yeah, that's cool, man. I'm excited to hear about that one.
Yeah, it's like same with music, like you can listen to Britney Spears, but then you switch to something like Rush or Led Zeppelin. Or I saw that you actually used the sleep token for one of your clips. That
Oh
was
yeah,
that was very interesting, my man. I was like,
yeah, they're good, man.
that's my little secret that I hold. I don't tell people that I like sleep token, but I go like, those guys are goodness gracious.
They're good, man.
Not quite Tool, but damn,
No,
yeah,
Tool is. We got to see Tool. We were in the front center, so probably I think we were like 7 rows back. We got to see Tool, most powerful band I've ever seen,
hands
ever.
down, hands down.
Incredible. Three
I was in
guys.
this. I was in the seventh row also for my birthday. My wife bought a ticket. Literally,
Nice.
literally 3 weeks before pandemic shutdowns, and their
Uh,
song "Fear Inoculum" is about almost like predictive about that, and it was in Dallas,
yeah.
and I was in the seventh row. Then when I find out what my wife spent on that ticket, I almost killed her. But that's a separate story.
Yeah. That was love, man. She
I
sacrificed.
suppose. I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Very, very quickly, one more. Well, a couple more things. I heard you mention ecological jujitsu.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth going. A lot of people go, it's a gimmick. Other people go like that's more natural way of learning, and those experiences actually you owning those experiences. What's your take as you being a long time BJJ player?
Yeah. Man, I really think there's a lot to it. I think
Okay.
it's a good way to train. Um, Adam Singer, he's written papers on it,
Yeah.
for MMA.
I read some of it.
Yeah, yeah, and he really breaks it down. And the thing I like about the guys that I talk to, because they're in all different sports, volleyball, all that stuff. And what I like about them is they're like us. They're asking questions. They're not saying that they know. They're saying that they're trying to know and they're trying to figure it out. And so I really like that. And basically it's really about creating games or what we would call drills to incentivize a certain behavior. So if you wanted to get students to transition from right shoulder to left shoulder, you would set up a drill that forces that to happen. Like what is the best way to negotiate this corner without revealing too much of yourself? And you could probably give them a hint, like maybe if you put the rifle on your left shoulder so that you can stay based and stable and peek out
Yeah.
just your left eye and the barrel,
Yeah.
and or the muzzle rather. And so they talk a lot about that kind of stuff, and then run it. So I'm not going to stand over top of you and you know segment things out and put your foot here, do this and do that. I'm going to tell you what I want you to accomplish with this drill, but
Right.
it's up to me to design that drill to force you into that space. And so I really like it. I think there's a lot of potential to it. I think there's a lot of guys, like you said, they haven't been swimming in the water long enough, but they're talking about it. They're the internet theologian now, but it's on ecological stuff. And I think so that's kind of muddying the waters a little bit. But there are some good guys, especially in the other sports like baseball and football, basketball, where they're talking about designing drills to kind of like that Charlie Munger thing, right? Where he says, if you show me your behavior, I'll show you what was incentivized. And so it's kind of that same thing where these guys are they're trying to find ways to incentivize a behavior through creating really well designed drills, not overcomplicated, but just like I said, right? Like how do I get you to put that rifle on your left shoulder, even though you might not want to, might not be comfortable, but the difference is, are you overexposed? Are you tipping out? Are you
Yeah.
leaning rather than yeah? So I like it. I think it's got potential. I think it's here to stay. It's been around a long time. The Russians did a bunch of
Uh,
stuff like Bernstein's hammer and all that stuff.
mhm.
They did
I was
a
gonna say actually when I started reading first time, the term of ecological jiu-jitsu came through. I'm reading it and I go like, I see a lot of references from my Systema training right
yeah, yeah,
within that playbook. And it's not
yeah,
just Systema, like you said, in a lot of Russian training methodologies, all the way to the sports like Olympic rowing. I was training with those guys.
yeah,
Obviously, powerlifting, weightlifting. You know what I mean? There's a lot
yeah,
of that like eco approach to
yeah.
methodology, which
Yeah,
is
and
pretty
like
interesting.
what you were talking about with every repetition is different, so we need a different word for it. Berenstein Hammer. What they did was they put lights on this guy who was like the premier blacksmith, and they put this some sort of light thing so they could take multiple pictures of him swinging the hammer because they thought that he was swinging the hammer the same way every time. So we just have to teach everybody else to swing a hammer the way he did. And what they found was he never swung the same way twice. He adapted mid flight to
Yeah,
what he needed to do to make the hit. So what they realized was it wasn't about the swing, it was about the outcome. It was about what was he seeing. So then that's where the kind of the term like perception action, that kind of stuff came up was what's he seeing that then dictates his action. So yeah, a lot of it's been around a long time, and it's just now kind of breaking into the jujitsu world and that kind of thing. So that's why we're seeing a lot of
yeah. When
kind of
something new and a little bit controversial, well, it's made controversial by people that don't want anything new, generally speaking.
yeah,
Comes in, it starts creating noise, and you will
yeah,
see. I experienced that over years with both system and gun work and other things that it's interesting to see. Ambidextrous gun work 20 years ago was like, what the fuck? Shooting on the
right,
move, one handed was what the fuck, right? But
right,
now you kind of go like, it's kind of like
yeah,
almost not quite new normal yet, but it's no longer a two-headed baby. You know what I mean? it's
yeah,
it's it's,
yeah,
it's a little deformed, but it's acceptable.
right.
So
We can live with it. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny. All right, man. Two more things before I let you go.
Okay.
Technique versus principle.
Principle first. Principle first.
Answers it. Good. Now, uh, talk as little or as much, because most people, me and you, had a little bit of that conversation. Because I think it's important. I actually was very uh, conflicted before I put a part in my book about fate.
Yeah.
Because in my book of Don't Be a Shitty Student, I put a part about fate, and it's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing at least whatever you're comfortable with sharing with the listeners as far as your path, uh, how it went? you know, whatever you're comfortable with in a relatively short time because, well, it's only 9:35 here, so it's 8:35 where you at, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're good. Yeah. So, man, um, I started out in the Methodist church with my grandmother and my father's family. They all were pretty devout Methodists. Even up, my grandmother lived to be 104. We were just out there to visit her before she passed, and even at 100 years plus of age, she still was very much about her faith, and so that's kind of where I started. Um, and then somewhere in there, my mom got connected with this apostolic charismatic type thing, faith, I guess you could call it. And so for several years, I was in that. And I went to school for theology. I went to school to be a pastor and a minister, and actually did work in that capacity. And worked as a chaplain, did all that stuff, and then I just kind of had this moment where you kind of what we were talking about before, where I lost my faith. Um, I lost my bearings. I just became disillusioned with some of the things I was seeing, and I couldn't do it anymore,
Would you
and I
say
just stepped away.
would you say you also became a bit angry because of
Oh yeah,
duplicity?
yeah,
Was
yeah. I became angry and lashed out a lot, attacked religion. I really was opposed to it. I could only see the negative, and I and then I had the aneurysm. I ended up in the hospital,
that was
and
2014, right?
yeah, 2014, ended up in the hospital, and it's a Catholic hospital. So the first couple of days, the priest would come by to visit with people, and I would just wave them off. I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm not Catholic. You know, don't don't even bother." And then one of the days, a guy came by, and he's wearing all black. He's in the cassock, and um, I see him, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, man." I'm like, "Look, I'm not Catholic. And he's like, "Oh, that's cool, neither am I." And I thought, that's weird. Like, okay, then how'd you get in here? What are you wearing? And he's like,
Well,
you mind if I come in? And
he doesn't look like a Muslim either, right? So
no, no, not at all. He's like, you mind if I come in and sit with you for? I'm like, yeah, man, come on in. And that started the journey of I'd never heard of Orthodoxy before. I had no idea what it was. I thought the giant Russian churches and Greek churches that are in the Chicagoland area, Ukraine and Serbian, all the different faiths, or Orthodox churches, I thought they were social clubs. I thought they were just, like that's where we
yeah,
have Greek Fest, and that's
yeah,
where, they have like the Armenia or the Armenian whatever,
yeah.
it never occurred to me that it's actually a church. And so over the years, I would visit with him. I would I would go to like a Vespers or Matins, and sometimes liturgy, and I would always kind of have this feeling of just peace, and that I'm like something greater is happening here, but I don't know what, and I can't describe it. It's unlike anything I've experienced ever. But I also had so many barriers, reverencing the icons and the Theotokos and all these different
Yes.
things, and it just it was just these barriers from my past, and also I still was kind of struggling with, do I even believe any of this? And I would have conversations with the different priests, the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Greeks and Antiochian church.
Yeah.
I'd have conversations with the priests at these different places I'd visit and have conversations. And I remember one of the priests said, "Look, you know, are you familiar with the passage in the Bible where Paul talks about work out your salvation with fear and trembling?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, I know. I'm familiar with that." He goes, "That's what we're all doing, man. That's it. No, we all have moments. We all have struggles. We all have days where we're like, what is going on? Is this real? Am I is any of this well, like we all have those days, but we keep coming back
Yeah.
and we keep showing up and we keep our prayer rule and we keep the fast and we come for liturgy and we come for vespers and yeah, and we keep working it out, and I remember thinking to what we were talking about before about you don't have to be an expert in everything. I remember thinking that is the most honest answer I've ever heard from a clergy member in any religion that I've ever been around. I just heard a priest who's been a priest for like 30 years, I think, at that point. I just heard a priest say to me, I struggle. Don't think you're special because you're struggling. Like get over it, dude. And that was that really just hit me in such a way that it was just hard to explain. And then that's when about that time so that was about a so 2015 was mostly spent trying to recover from the aneurysm.
Yeah.
And so then 2016, 2017, 2018, I was really visiting and having coffee with the priests and conversations and just sometimes I would leave, I'd be so angry because I just was like, that's not what I grew up. You're telling me that everything I ever learned or ever knew was wrong, that was a misinterpretation, that the Reformation was a rebellion. And yes, there were things that were wrong with the Catholic Church and there were some valid points, but you took it too far. And that's why every few years, those groups will split and they'll form another version and
Denomination. Yeah.
another denomination. And it really made me mad. And I would get angry and I would leave. And then I would find myself coming back a couple weeks later and going, okay, let me ask you another question. And so thank God they were patient and very cool and they understood that I'm working my way through this. And so then I moved to Boise after the shutdowns because that just kind of shut everything
Yeah.
down, killed everything. I moved out to Boise, got married, and then shortly after that, I said to my wife, who was raised Mormon and was atheist at the time, and I said, "Hey, what would you think about going to an Orthodox church? Because it's really been on my mind again. Like I feel this draw, this pull." And she said, "Yeah," because that's how she is. She's always down.
Yeah.
So she said, "Yeah, I would do that," and we went, and that was it. We became catechumens shortly after that, and then a year later, we were baptized. So
That's awesome,
it
man.
was,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
To me, as I said, as a partial Russian and being baptized Orthodox together with my wife, who's also ex-Mormon, who also was
Yeah,
atheist,
yeah,
and now seeing like an American dude who has nothing to do with Eastern culture or other than some people that trained you early, they sound like they have Eastern European last names, but so that's
yeah.
probably bad influence right there. But no, to me it's fascinating, man, because I'm watching. There's this guy. He's pretty big on social media. He used to be a dev guru guy and he worked for GPRS, but now he's doing his own irregular stuff.
Yeah,
He also became Orthodox, and I'm watching some very interesting dudes, kind of heading in that direction. And I'll tell you something that's to me is actually I feel the weight of it, Paul. I live here in East Texas in the woods, and in the last year, three of my students have changed everything in their life, and they moved here to train, and they
oh
all
nice.
and they all are catechumens now and about to become
Oh
Orthodox.
good. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I'm talking to Father Barry, and I go like, dude, I'm like, I don't know if this is my weight to carry. He goes like, it's not your
Yeah,
decision.
yeah,
He's like, keep doing
yeah,
what you're doing, the rest of it. And
yeah,
that's what I put, your job is to work upon yourself. For this you are chosen. The rest is in the hands of God.
yes,
And that's
absolutely.
Saint Theophan the Recluse. Cool, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing that. Last question.
yeah.
Always a controversy.
Yeah,
Systema.
Sistema. Man, I don't know anything about it. That's the thing. Like I've never. I was just talking with a friend about that. Uh, he was in the unit, and I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be on Sunny's show in a little bit, man. I'll talk to you after I get done. And he's like, oh yeah, Sunny was at. I think you were trying to teach Sistema to the unit or something. I don't
Yeah.
remember. But and I was just telling him, I'm like, yeah, my only exposure to it was in the Surefire Institute. So Ken Good,
Ken Good? Yeah.
yeah, and those guys early on in my career, I went to the Surefire low light classes,
Mhm.
and their force on force. They had like the guys with paintball guns running around, lighting everybody up, and but I never. And then there was a hand to hand portion of the class and some knife stuff that was very brief. It was like maybe 2 hours of the 4 days that we were there.
Yeah,
So
they called it PCR, physical conflict resolution, I believe.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So totally like that's the extent of my exposure. So I know
yeah,
nothing about Sistema. I did have a lot of exposure to Sambo because in Chicago
yeah,
that's real big out there.
yeah.
And one of my guys was Sambo world champ. So one of my training partners. So a lot of exposure to Sambo, but nothing to Sistema.
Yeah,
So
because I know
yeah,
that most of the time you mention it and people go like, "Oh, is that bullshito stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's you're correct. You're correct. It's bullshito."
yeah. Sometimes that's all you can say. It's like,
And,
yeah. I mean, I would love to train it. And I would love to get down there and train with you and learn something about it. But yeah,
well,
I don't
God's
have
God,
any.
God's ways are unknown, Paul. Who knows, right? Who
Yeah,
knows
for
what can
sure.
happen and how it can happen. So,
Yeah, but
listen,
I
dude,
definitely.
I really, really appreciate you coming on and spending an hour, well, no, 2 hours and almost 20 minutes with me here, man.
Oh, cool, man.
Apologize to your spouse and your kids,
Oh, that's
please, for
okay.
keeping you away from them for so long. But I was stoked to be able to kind of have this little interview, whatever you want to call it, with you, because as I said, I I saw you in that space many 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 years ago,
Yeah,
and you always came across to me as uh, you know when he speaks, he has something to say. Otherwise, he doesn't speak, which is, to me,
yeah,
that's a pretty important metric as far as
yeah,
the way I look at dudes. I really
yeah. I
appreciate the
appreciate
time.
it, man. Yeah,
Uh,
thank you for having me, man. I really enjoyed your conversation. I'm looking
yeah,
forward to your book, man.
yeah. I'll send you a copy. Gentlemen and ladies, Refuse to Die by Paul Sharp. I'm not saying it because Paul is here. I mean, I can kick him off and then I say it. But get the damn book. Get the damn book. It's more than worth every penny, plus shipping, plus taxes, plus whatever else you have to pay for it. Get the book, read it slowly, and it's one of those books that like I have a collection of the books that I come back to. Like I had Seneca's Letters to Lucilius. That first time I read it, I was 16, and it was in Lithuanian language back in the old
Oh
times. And
yeah.
I reread
Wow.
it. I reread it a year ago. Because in English language,
Nice. Yeah.
and you kind of go like, man, talk about new discoveries.
Yeah.
Because since then I lived 30 some years,
Yeah.
or 40 almost.
Yeah.
And you go like, you see things to a different light. And with
Yeah. Yeah.
things like this, sometimes it takes two good training sessions, or rolling sessions, or event in your life, and the same thing that you read a week ago, you will read it differently.
Yeah.
Because experience,
Yeah.
they shape our capacity to process information in completely different light. So
Yeah.
I find it that your book, I think it has that potential to be the one that you read it, cool, you got it, don't put it in the box, keep it in your bookshelf. You know what I mean? It's
Cool. Yeah.
that would be my recommendation. So one more time, Refuse to Die by Paul Sharp. Find it. Paul, really quickly, do the plug. What do you do on paulsharpcoaching.com?
Yeah. So We have a community in school where we talk about this kind of stuff all the time and encourage each other to grow and to develop into who we're supposed to be, our purpose. And then with the Paul Sharp coaching, I'll work with people individually, one on one, and do that, help them figure out like where they got off track, how do we get back on track, and how do we live a life that's full of purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, what you were built to do. You were created to do something other than just sit there and play video games, drink beer, and develop bad habits. So,
Yeah, for damn sure.
yeah,
For damn sure. All right. So, for my viewers, again, this has been almost 2.5 hours with Mr. Paul Sharp. Get his first but not the last book, Refuse to Die.
right,
Check out what he has to offer on paulsharpcoaching.com. He is based out of Wyoming. So
yeah,
those of you who are within 18 hours, make a trip. It's not a big deal. It's a beautiful
right,
country out there. I'm actually going
yeah.
to Salt Lake City next week.
Oh, nice.
I think. I think. Uh,
Right,
and yeah, love the area there. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
And Paul, thank you so much, sir, for being here. All the best to you. Please, you give my apologies to your loved ones and your family, man. I really
that's all
appreciate you
good.
coming on, and
Yeah,
hopefully, God willing, will our paths will cross, hopefully in person, so we can put some of the things we talk about, so to speak, into practice and kind of play with concepts and do some exploration and
for sure. Yeah,
that
awesome,
kind
man.
of stuff, man. All right,
Definitely.
Paul. All glory be
Thank
to
you, man.
God. All the best to you, sir. And
You too, man. Thank you.
thank you. All right,
All
guys.
right.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. This has been episode number 39 with Mr. Paul Sharp. Next Tuesday, there will be no episode because I will be on the way to Salt Lake City. So wait until I tell you when is the next episode number 40. It may be actually like 3 weeks away, and hopefully, I will bring that certain gentleman I mentioned, the chef with the big Japanese $1,000 knives that cuts sushi like you've never seen in your life. And we'll talk about cutting flesh and eating things that are delicious and why it's important. This has been episode 39 from Gospel of Violence podcast. May God bless. All right, Paul.